Let me ask you a question. When was the first time you heard the name Tyler Robinson or the Losi Center, a Mauser 98? For me, and I assume many of you, it was in the days and weeks after Charlie Kirk's tragic assassination on September 10th. And you better believe I've been doing some Googling since then, right? Who is Tyler? What are the access points to the Losi Center rooftop? What kind of damage can a 30-06 caliber bullet do? But what if I told you somebody, maybe multiple somebodies, were searching those terms before September 10th? What do you think about that?
Before the shooting. Well, there's Washington, D.C. at 11 a.m., the day before the Charlie Kirk shooting. And you'll see here where the news finally broke that it was, in fact, Tyler James Robinson. But notice that. That's weird. That's weird.
That is weird, I gotta say. Somebody, why would anybody be searching the name Tyler James Robinson one day before he allegedly assassinated Charlie Kirk? The data point is just a tiny blip, but it's there. Tyler James Robinson, right? A name that nobody knew of prior to September 12th, 2 days after the shooting, when the media told us who Tyler James Robinson was, right? A supposed 22-year-old leftist who hated Charlie Kirk. So what does that little Google trend blip mean? Well, I did some research using Google Gemini, and they say Google Trends, what it does is normalize search interest to the region you select. The formula is search interest equals total searches in the region and time divided by total searches for the term. So when you look at things from a nationwide context, the total number of searches is enormous. The small handful of searches for Tyler James Robinson on September 9th is so tiny, a fraction of all the US searches, that it gets rounded down to zero. But then when you zoom in a DC context, if you filter for the District of Columbia, the total search volume is much, much smaller. So if a few searches for Tyler James Robinson on September 9th originated in the DC area, then this handful of searches becomes a significant enough proportion of all DC searches on that day to register a value of 18 out of 100. Then it says, and this part is critical, quote, the fact that the searches are localized to DC, a city synonymous with the federal government, intelligence, national media, and political organizations, strongly shifts the interpretation away from random noise or perpetrator checking his own name, from an ambiguous anomaly into a strong potential signal of pre-event institutional knowledge or activity. That is interesting. And to be clear, I'm not coming to any conclusions myself just yet, but that is how Google is interpreting its own trends data. But hold up for a second, strap in, buckle up, whatever you need to do, because there is actually so much more weirdness to come. So if you remember, in the immediate hours after the shooting, people online were posting about this private jet that supposedly took off shortly after the assassination from Provo, Utah, which is 12 minutes away from the university, because for some reason the transponder of that plane had turned off after takeoff. Tail number of that airplane is 9888 KG, which they later told us the transponder specifically turned off because it flew over an area where planes frequently lose contact. Okay, maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but check this out.
N888 KG, November 888 Kilo Golf. And you can see here where the news breaks about the plane. The evening of September 10th, the evening after the shooting, you can see the news break here about the plane, and everybody starts rushing to look at it as they come across it on their Facebook and Twitter feeds and all this. But what is that in Utah?
Once again, September 9th, one day before the shooting, there is a blip. Why? We don't know. But of course, they're telling us there's nothing to see here. Don't look any further. So let's be good little boys and girls and move on.
This is probably the wildest search that I was able to do. September 8th. You can see here where the shooting breaks. 3 p.m. He's shot. By 4 p.m., everybody on the planet is searching Losi Center, including people in the Washington, D.C. metro area. But I saw this blip and thought, why? Why on September 8th, 2 days before the shooting, is someone searching the Losi Center?
I am right there with you, brother. Why? Losee Center, specifically the rooftop of the Losee Center, is of course the location at Utah Valley University where Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk from, allegedly. And somebody in DC was doing a search a couple days beforehand at the Losee Center, I guess maybe just to get a lay of the land there, if you catch my drift. Wink, wink. Okay, but let's take a pause. Let's be skeptical for a second, because we should always be skeptical. And I'm throwing myself into that category. You should be skeptical of what I'm saying. Do your own research. That's always the smart thing to do. And in this case, we have to ask, how do we know this dude isn't just faking the results, right? That's something that we need to consider for sure. And well, I guess he knew some of us would probably be thinking that, because it's kind of a crazy thing that he's sharing. And this guy's name is Baron Coleman. Actually, let's just do a quick sidebar about him. I did a little dig just to see who he was, because he really didn't have very many videos on YouTube. So I wanted to see if he had an online footprint. And it turns out he does, and that he is a former radio host at News Talk 93.1 WACV, which is a radio station in Alabama. So at the very least, he's, didn't just pop out of nowhere. And I want to give props to his great research. And in this next clip, he actually does an interesting live search for everyone to see.
Let's try it. Mauser 98. Lots the last couple days. You'll see that. Lots of interest the last couple days. Let's go the last 7 days. See? But let's exclude some time, shall we? Let's just do this just for this. I've not done this one, by the way. We're going to have to go back in time, and we're going to have to do it from before the shooting. So let's exclude it to September 9th. And so let's just do a national one. Let's do a month. Let's do April 10 to November 9. And let's just see. I don't know what this is going to show. It might show nothing or not enough information. I do not want to be like Geraldo, ripping open the safe, expecting to see great things. I don't know what this is going to show. Okay, so this is interesting. Over the United States, in the month leading up, there was no interest in Mauser 98s until August 31st. And then there was a blip, and we really got a good hit on September 7th, 3 days before the shooting. So let's change the jurisdiction here. Let's do it in the District of Columbia. Again, not making any guarantees, but there is a hit right there, Mauser 98 on August 27th, 2025, and it's the only time in the month that it was searched.
Mauser 98, a rifle that the feds tell us is powerful, vintage, and hard to trace. And in this case, someone in DC was very interested in old, vintage, hard to trace rifles just a couple weeks before the Charlie Kirk assassination. Not before, not really after. Y'all know the phrase, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action. Well, this is now 4 different coincidences, so I think you guys know what I'm getting at here. Full disclosure, I did try to replicate these search trends, but I could not. The searches would come up empty like this. So then I went to Twitter to check out the chatter, and a lot of people were saying that after his video was released and it kind of went viral, the trends results had been since scrubbed. Google, they would never manipulate algorithms to change your search results, would they? Anyway, officially, Google says that any such manual intervention is extremely rare and would only happen indirectly. It would not be an admin going in and quote unquote scrubbing a trend line. Instead, it would involve a successful legal or policy request to remove a specific highly sensitive search query, like an explicit doxing term or illegal material from Google's main search index. If that very low volume, highly specific query was the sole factor causing a small localized blip in your trends data sample, its removal from the index could indirectly cause the subsequent trends report to revert to 0 for that moment. Therefore, while the technical algorithmic reasons, sampling, normalization, and filtering, are overwhelmingly likely the cause, a highly specific policy-driven removal of an underlying search term remains a negligible theoretical possibility. Look, I don't know. Maybe it was a coincidence, maybe it wasn't, but it's getting more and more probable, I would say, by the day, that this story was maybe written before that fatal shot was ever fired. That is it for me this week. Tell me, do you still believe in the lone gunman theory, or is there maybe more to the story than meets the eye? Sound off in the comment section below and tell me what you think, because as time passes, as more time passes, a lot of people I think will move on from this story inevitably, and facts will become hazy, timelines might shift around a little bit, and we would be none the wiser. So that is why I've continued to try to document everything, because one day I want to be able to pull up these videos and say, no, we saw something very different at the time. So if you want to support the work that I'm doing, please take a second to like this video, share with your friends and family, subscribe if you haven't already done so. It looks like we just crossed the 100K mark. So I want to give a big thank you for everyone's support. I have some big things planned, a little bit of celebration, so stay tuned for that. But most importantly, I appreciate everyone for your time. And of course, I'll see you in the next one.
Okay. Congratulations. You have been selected to receive the Resident Presidential Scholarship from Utah State University. The value of this scholarship is approximately $32,000. This scholarship is available for 4 years or 8 semesters.